Hello, YNABers. My name is Jesse Meekum, and this is podcast number 456 for YNAB, where we teach you 4 rules to help you stop living paycheck to paycheck, get out of debt, and save more money. What happens when you are just feeling anxious, fearful, scared, tired, annoyed? No, really fearful. That's what I want to talk about today. What happens when you just have this low hum, like steady state hum of anxiety, or there are things that legitimately are making you afraid? What do we do? And as it relates to money specifically, where we're worried about the economic side of things, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? What about this? What about that? As it relates to money, if you're fearful with your money, then because it's money, it can't help but just kind of spread everywhere else. So today I want to just discuss 2 things very briefly that will help us overcome fear as it relates to our money. Number 1, and again, when you're relating things to money, it can go broad very quickly. But number 1, you take a page from Stephen R. Covey's excellent book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he talks about the circle of influence and being very clear on what that is for you. For everyone, it's different. For some high uppity up in some fancy pants place, their circle of influence is very large. For someone that, lives in their community and you wouldn't know them if you saw them on the street, their circle of influence is lower, or not lower, smaller. But everyone has one, and to be very crystal clear on what you can control, and then by definition, what you cannot, you will find that you feel a lot better about your situation, even though the situation hasn't changed at all. It's like budgeting. When you get really clear on what the dollars are supposed to do, suddenly you feel content, even though you haven't made more money. Well, when you're really clear on where you have influence and where you don't, then suddenly you're like, okay, I can deal with that. I can deal with working in my family, my relationships, my close friends, my community, my work. I can deal with that, those circles of influence. But when you start to think that you're supposed to worry about everything that you can possibly know about, and in this day and age, what can you not know about? I think it's a recipe for a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear. And as it relates to money, you really have to be clear, okay, what do I control? What do I not control? And then what do I do where I control things? How do I take action? So number 1, establishing that circle of influence. Where do I have control? Where do I not? And be very clear, like write it down, not on a computer, like on a piece of paper, left side, right side. What do I control? What's worrying me? Do I control this? Be very clear on that. It's a very stoic exercise, but it works very well. Number 2, gather information. If you're afraid about something with your money, then you need to gather as much information as you can around that. Again, to go back to people that just start budgeting, they're sitting there thinking, I don't know what to do. Their head's in the sand or in the clouds or whatever, but they don't know what to do. And then when we say, well, how much money do you have in your checking account right now? We're just gathering one data point. And then we're saying, well, what does that money need to do before you're paid again? So a few more data points. And then suddenly that person that was full of fear just before is now feeling okay. And as it relates to your fear, and you've established, here's what I control, here's what I don't, well, gather information about what you control and then take action. But the 2 things that cause me the most anxiety is the useless fear around things that I don't control, and then being in the dark about things where I don't necessarily have to suffer in the darkness. I can do a little bit of reading, do a little bit of research, talk to some people, find things out, and realize, oh, this isn't so scary after all. The other day, our little girl, she was having like a night terror. We haven't dealt with a lot of those, and it was mine and Julie's first. And I'd never had a kid that had such an intense, scary dream. I told a friend about it. He's like, oh, a night terror. And I'm like, night terror? What the heck is that? You mean nightmare? No, night terror. They're different. And anyway, I was educated a little bit on that. But it was fascinating. She's up on her bunk bed, and we're trying to talk her down. And at first I was like, I'm just go to bed. I'm frustrated. And then you realize, oh my gosh, no, she is legitimately fearful. And she has these little decorations on her sheets, like the way the fabric is decorated. And they're little polka dots, I think is what it is. And she was of the mind that those little dots were bugs. And so this cute little girl, I'm laying her back down in her bed, and she's kind of calming down, and then she jumps back up, and at that point, I'm afraid she's going to fall off the bunk bed. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And she's just like, the bugs, they're everywhere. And I thought, this is crazy. Well, what did we do? We turned the light on. shed a little light on the situation. She sees that those cute little polka dots aren't bugs, and she could calm down. And I feel like we do that to ourselves a lot, where we worry about something and like the mind just latches onto it and loops around on that same thing. And you just think, could I take 5 or 10 minutes or a day and really do some research and figure out all the information I can about this thing that I control that is worrying me? And could I maybe shed a little light on this situation and have those polka dots not look like bugs or whatever it may be? The analogy probably breaks down. Anyway, establish what you can control and be clear on what you can't and content with that. It starts to almost feel absurd when you really force yourself to walk through those situations and say, well, this is really worrying me. Well, do you control that? Then why are you spending so much mental bandwidth with it? Now, if you want to get things done, if you want to take charge, if you want to affect change, absolutely. But everyone has to start where they have influence, or it really is not influential. So we be really clear on what you can control. Then you look at that and you say, okay, what information do I need to gather? What light can I shed on this thing so that I have some more insight and can start to take steps of action? When we get people budgeting, we're doing this all the time. You don't control right off the bat how much you make, at least not immediately. You don't control off the bat what your bills are, not immediately. But you do start to assert your authority, your influence over those things, and you feel really, really good. Now, this lesson can be broadly applied. It's not just about money, but money is probably a good place to start because money just creeps its little fingers into every aspect of our lives. Until next time, follow YNAB's 4 rules and you will win financially. You've never budgeted like this.